happens. Opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation. Tonight, on the eve of the spring statement, I'll be joined by one of the great economists of our time, Lord Moynihan of Chelsea, as the government fiddles while Rome burns. Meanwhile, the founder of Pimlico Plumbers and Reform UK donor Charlie Mullins will be joining me live in the studio for a TV exclusive as he reveals the plot to take away his OBE. A new report has revealed the North Sea could power the UK for decades if only Ed Miliband reversed his ban on domestic drilling. Plus, in what could be one of the worst cases of cancer culture yet, I will be speaking to a man who claims he was sacked for condemning Hamas. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the author and journalist, Michael Crick. As always, I want to know your views, mailmog@gbnews.com, but now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Katie Byrne.
Jacob, thank you and good evening. The top stories at 8:01. President Trump has said that there was no classified information in the group chat that journalist Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally added to, and that National Security Advisor Michael Waltz does not need to apologise. The US President has backed his National Security Advisor Waltz, dismissing the breach as a glitch, and also labelled journalist Goldberg as a sleazeball. Reporter Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally included in a group chat where senior US officials discussed conducting airstrikes on Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Earlier, the White House said that the actions of President Trump's administration have made Houthi terrorists pay. Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, was added to a group which included US Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Here's what the president had to say earlier on.
There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use. But that's an app that a lot of people use. And somebody got on. I mean, happened to know the guy's a total sleazebag. The Atlantic is a failed magazine. Does very, very poorly. Nobody gives a damn about it.
Elsewhere, President Zelensky said this evening that Russia is already engaging in manipulation after Ukraine and Russia agreed to a ceasefire in the Black Sea earlier today. The Ukrainian president said that the Kremlin was lying when it said accords on the Black Sea shipping were linked to the sanctions regime imposed on Moscow. The Kremlin said that the US and Russia have also agreed to develop measures to halt strikes on Russian and Ukrainian energy infrastructure for 30 days. President Zelensky said both the ceasefire in the Black Sea and on energy plants is effective immediately. Number 10 said earlier that the government is hopeful for progress and that they are following developments closely, while the White House added that Washington would continue facilitating talks on both sides in a bid towards achieving a sustainable peace. assisted dying laws in England and Wales could take up to 4 years to implement, instead of the initial timeline of 2. Labour MP Kim Leadbeater has proposed the deferral of 2 years, meaning the first operational assisted dying service will coincide with the next general election in 2029. Leadbeater said that she hopes and believes the service can be delivered more quickly, but that the changes made to the bill since the autumn, including additional safeguards, meant it would inevitably take longer to implement. And Buckingham Palace has announced that the King and Queen's state visit to the Holy See has been postponed by mutual agreement. Medical advice has now suggested that Pope Francis would benefit from, quote, an extended period of rest and recuperation. Their Majesties have sent the Pope their best wishes for his convalescence and say they look forward to visiting him in the Holy See once he has recovered. King Charles and Queen Camilla will still visit Italy, but there will now be changes to their programme. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Jacob.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Legend has it that during the Great Fire of Rome in AD 64, which I remember quite well, the Emperor Nero fiddled or played the cithara, dressed in theatrical garb as he declaimed a poem on the fall of Troy. It doesn't seem entirely clear whether he actually played and sang as the capital of the greatest empire the world had at that point known, whilst it was consumed by flames, or merely watched the fire dreaming of the new city he hoped to build. But what was clear was that Nero was worrying about the wrong things while his capital burned. Why do I mention this, you may wonder? Well, it seems there is something of a comparison between the Emperor Nero and the Chancellor Rachel Reeves. Tomorrow she will announce her emergency budget, coyly named a spring statement, despite promising only one budget a year. In total, along with welfare and foreign aid savings, she will attempt to find another £10 billion to try and reassure the markets after the government borrowed significantly more money than forecast. But it is tinkering at the edges that amounts to the fiddling while Rome burns, because sadly this is a country in crisis. First, the growth crisis. According to the Growth Commission, since June of last year, GDP has decreased by 0.1%, and over the same period, growth in GDP per capita has actually been negative. The government's brutal tax rises, particularly on employer national insurance, have devastated the economy. And this will only get worse with the passing of its Employment Rights Bill. The self-proclaimed government of growth has already failed on its biggest promise. Then there's the fiscal crisis. In February, it had its fourth highest borrowing since records began in 1993, £4.1 billion higher than anticipated. Debt servicing costs, that's interest payments, another third highest cost behind welfare and health. Then there is the risk to trade if the government continues to try to align itself with the European Union, risking sanctions from the Trump administration and reducing the possibility of a trade deal with the US. What the country needs is an overhaul of public spending, tax cuts and the slashing of regulations. But instead, the Chancellor is playing the cithara. Well, we asked our friends at Grok on Elon Musk's X, formerly known as Twitter, if it could muster up an artificially generated image of the Chancellor fiddling while Rome burns, and here's what it came up with. They didn't actually have fiddles back in ancient Rome, but as I've said, citharas. Either way, I can only hope that she paid for that fiddle or cithara herself, and if it was a freebie, she declared it to Parliament. As ever, let me know your views via mailmog@gbnews.com. I'm now joined by the distinguished economist, John Lord Moynihan, who was also a donor to my campaign in North East Somerset, as well as my panel, former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the author and journalist, Michael Crick. John, first of all, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me on.
You were at the Growth Commission yesterday, and you've written 2 books, or 1 book in 2 volumes, on how to grow the economy. What was the main message you were trying to get across yesterday, and how do you think the government could change?
I think that at the highest level of abstraction, what we're trying to tell the government is that they should stop focusing on the demand side and think about the supply side. They think that growth is all about stimulating people to spend money, whereas in fact, growth is about getting people to provide the jobs that will allow people to do the work that will allow them to spend the money in a virtuous circle. And it does seem that the Labour government, as you were saying, they focus on growth. They say that's the number one thing they want to have happen. And it seems that the whole body politic is now agreed, yes, we've got to go for growth, otherwise people get left behind very badly. But they don't seem to have an idea of what creates growth.
And sentiment is very important to growth, isn't it? How people feel about the economy. And the briefing prior to the budget on the 31st of October and the briefings that we've had subsequently have been very negative, along with the proposals to make it harder to employ people, which is having a very damaging effect on employment prospects.
Well, that's right, because an awful lot of the things that the government is proposing to do haven't happened yet. A lot of them come in April. The increase in national insurance contributions and the higher living wage, all of which are things that the hundreds of thousands of small businesses in this country look at with horror. And so for months, they've been not hiring the new people they thought they were going to hire, and in fact letting go a few people. And when you multiply that by hundreds of thousands of small businesses, you end up with a lot less employment. Thus, you get a great deal more on the welfare bill, which augments already something the government has recognised, which is the increased medicalisation of joblessness, so that many young people are now signing on as disabled because they are stressed or whatever. And so those two impacts are pushing up the welfare bill.
There were two things you suggested that could create growth, one of which the government's committed to, which is planning reform.
Yes.
And the other is doing a trade deal slightly under the cosh from Donald Trump. How do those both work?
Well, I don't think anybody on any side of the political spectrum has said that a trade deal with America would be a bad thing. But it was always scoffed at as something that wouldn't be possible, and that the EU would always be ahead of the queue from us in terms of doing a trade deal. Well, that's all turned out not to be true, and it turns out that a trade deal with America is possible. I think the thing that the chairman of the Growth Commission, Shankar Singham, was pointing out was that if you're going to do a trade deal, it's a deal, and you give some things and they give some things. There are lots of things we want to sell to America, but there are things we want to sell, they want to sell to us. And all these tropes about chlorine-washed chicken and hormone-fed beef, you know, there are farmers out in the Midwest of America who are telling their senators, you're going to give us a market into the UK. And you know, there are things like the digital tax and other things that America's upset about that we're going to have to give. Now, if the Labour government's prepared to give, we will get as well, and that will boost growth quite a bit. And I'm quite hopeful that the government's going to be realistic, because they're being realistic about, as you say, quite a few things, about planning, about the civil service, about welfare reform. They're only nibbling around the edges of all of that, but they are saying, yes, we recognise that 6 months ago we got it wrong when we said that the Conservative plans to reduce the civil service were wrong. We've now got our own plans to reduce the civil service after we closed down the Conservative plans to reduce the civil service. So they're nibbling around the edges, but they are beginning to see sense about a lot of things, while at the same time you've got the Employment Rights Bill coming through, which is going to further persuade people not to hire anybody new.
And Michael, this is the difficulty for Rachel Reeves, isn't it? That it seems that she does actually have some idea of how to get growth, but the Labour Party won't let her do it. That the Employment Rights Bill is fundamental to keeping the left happy when they're cutting welfare and they're cutting overseas aid.
Well, it's not a matter of keeping the left happy. The left is nothing in the Labour Party these days. It's a matter of promises made to the trade unions and measures taken under Conservative governments went far too far on that front. But let's not get diverted down that avenue. My fear is that tomorrow's statement will be just boring. I mean, I'm reminded of the former editor of Newsnight who described Rachel Reeves as boring snoring. And I think what she has to do tomorrow, any Chancellor had to do tomorrow, and I'm sure there are Labour Chancellors like Dennis Healey who would have been really bold tomorrow. For instance, this government, Starmer and Reeves, could say, right, we are in the middle of an international emergency. Our greatest ally is no longer reliable, and we've seen more of that today. We are under increasing threat from Russia, And in these circumstances, we don't just need to, we need to increase defence by even more than we've already promised. And that, if you're spending it on weaponry, will provide a boost to growth. Now, it may mean that your figures don't add up, but then some of the things that John has been proposing, the figures don't add up as well. But I think boldness is what is required now. And it was, remember, it was defence spending and the threat from Nazi Germany in the 1930s that ended the Depression.
Well, up to a point, that's very tendentious. But, Kelvin, is Rachel Reeves... well, there was house building.
I think the trouble is that Rachel Reeves is hold beneath the waterline anyway. I saw a poll tonight conducted by YouGov for Oxfam. I mean, what the hell Oxfam have got to do with spending their money in that area? I have no idea. Showing that 73% think that Labour have done an awful job for the economy. I said in a tweet that I thought that the other 27% thought it was OK, but that was discarded on the basis that they were in a mental hospital. But look, Rachel Reeves is hold also in another important area, which is that she makes about $150,000 a year. Her husband, a very successful civil servant, makes about $170,000 a year. They make about $320,000 coming into their rather nice household, which I'm wholly in favour of. Money, fantastic. How is it that she was allowed to have a freebie of tickets for a pop concert for 600 quid? Why have we got... I'm not saying they're necessarily all Labour politicians, but after all, they're being clothed for free. Now they're getting pop tickets when you've got 320 grand coming in. So she's the Chancellor, and she's standing up tomorrow, and she's going to be talking about, where people are at the bottom. There will be people in that audience listening to Sabina Carpenter who will have been skipped and yet wouldn't have made one-tenth of that money.
But security is a reasonable consideration for the Chancellor.
The security for free, right?
Yeah,
those seats, she said herself, were not available to anybody else.
But isn't it easier to secure somebody in seats that aren't available to anybody else?
My point about it is, I totally agree with that. Why didn't she just pay for the tickets? What is it about politicians?
You're right, Kelvin, but we surely should be discussing the future of the economy.
We're talking about how ordinary people view
that is important, but we should be talking about something bold that needs to be done to give.
Well, what about paying for your pop tickets?
Nothing she's done what she's done so far has kicked it the wrong way, and we need something really big to kick it the right way.
Is she stabilising and reasonable influence? She doesn't get carried away. She's close to Starmer. Her position's more secure than it appears. And is everyone getting a little bit carried away?
No, they're not, because, as I say, we are in dire times economically and diplomatically. And the dire times need strong, bold, imaginative, surprising measures. And, OK, Starmer and Reeves can say, well, softly, safely, and that's the way they will, lose the next election.
Yeah, but you haven't actually said what those startling, surprising things are. The point is that...
An even bigger increase in defence spending than they're already proposing.
Well, in my book, I propose a bigger increase in defence spending, and it was published last year, than is being proposed right now. And while you said that the numbers I propose, I'm sure you haven't read my book, so I don't know how you know, but you say they didn't add up. They do add up. They do add up, and they do lead to greater growth.
Sorry, I was mixing... Forgive me. I was mixing up what the Growth Commission said, which you were not a member of. You were just on their panel. And they come out with a number of proposals that will involve declining revenues. And if we give up the digital sales tax, that will that's what 800 million, I think. Yeah. So
you have to cut your costs as well.
Can I ask one question? Which and by the way, as you might have gathered, I'm not on the side of my socialist chums in this argument, right? So what I don't understand is that were I running a small business, and I have a small business, if I'm running a small business, I will have already started chopping the numbers. What I don't understand is that the unemployment numbers are at 4.4, I think, or something like that. Yeah, 4.4. They haven't actually risen.
They've risen a little bit.
They've risen, but you would have thought that people would be acting ahead of this tax coming in with April the 2nd or 3rd or whatever. Why hasn't there been... This has been going on for 5 months.
Very last word from John on that.
I think it's because so many people are going on sickness and other things that the unemployment numbers still look quite low, But the numbers out of work are enormous.
OK.
Yes.
Thank you very much to Lord Moynihan of Chelsea and to my panel. Next, we'll be looking at the first of 2 uncancellations for the evening. Charlie Mullins joins for a TV exclusive on State of the Nation after revealing the Honours Forfeiture Committee tried to remove his OBE. Thank you.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip? Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, tomorrow on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Withensea. It's an East Yorkshire seaside town that's been here for centuries. Once a bustling coastal resort, now only its pier towers remain. And like many British seaside destinations, it's seen a drop in holiday makers.
Gone are the days when we had packed beaches. The area has changed and, you know, it just needs a little bit more, so there's something to do for people.
Since they pulled the railway, that was a death of witnesses sort of thing. Slowly it's died to what it is now. About the next thing, I guess, it'll go in the sea.
Yeah, I think it's a typical English seaside town, and sometimes they don't move with the times, do they?
And it hasn't changed a lot since, you know, when I come. But still people here, still people come.
Plans for a new pier were scrapped in 2023 due to funding issues. Now, with price hikes brought on by Labour's autumn budget, business owners are feeling the pinch. Annette Bagley owns the Rosy Leaf Cafe, and she's been forced to put up her prices.
It's been a bit hard because the wages have gone up, national insurance has gone up, so everything is going up. My costs for just running the place, the coffee's gone up, chocolate's gone up, everything really has just gone up, and I'm afraid I've had to pass that on to customers by putting my prices up a little bit.
East Riding Council has schemes in place to boost the economy.
And we're just trying to make the town better in lots of different ways. We also have a big voluntary group called Town Smart, and there's a great team of volunteers, and we're out there litter picking, cleaning, painting, and we're also going to sort of see if we can create a business collective and a business group as we go forwards to help local businesses.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and we were talking about the economy, and the Mail Moggs have come zooming in. Graham says, Reeves' incompetence is pure theatre. She will shortly blame things out of her control for raising taxes. Labour's mission is to steal wealth, property and freedoms from citizens, and it's going swimmingly. And Alan says Reeves is playing the fiddle. The taxpayer is being conned. Britain is financially bust. She is like a second-rate musician playing the last post on the deck of the Titanic. I think they actually played Nearer My God to Thee. Anyway, now, one of Reform UK's most prominent multi-millionaire backers, the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, excellent firm, by the way, Charlie Mullins, has revealed the Honours Forfeiture Committee tried to remove his OBE, that is the Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, following what it called a troubling pattern of behaviour, sounds like schoolmaster, including remarks about Sir Sadiq Khan and Carol Vorderman, after numerous letters from Mr Mullins' lawyers and a promise to take a diversity and inclusion test. The committee has decided it will take no further action. I'm joined now by the man himself, the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, Charlie Mullins, OBE, as well as my most pugnacious panel, Kelvin Mackenzie and Michael Crick. Charlie, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having us in, Jacob.
Did you pass your diversity test when you took it?
That's all rubbish, what they're saying about that.
OK.
Look, basically,
It's politically motivated. They're trying to take the OBE off me. They've lost. Game's over. We've already had the decision. They've got no grounds to go on. They're talking about all these silly posts, nonsense posts on Twitter, which are 2 or 3 years ago. The real reason is because I'm a reform supporter now and a donator. The fact that I don't agree or believe anything that Labour say, I'm totally against them. I've moved out of the UK not to avoid tax but to avoid Labour. That's what it's about. It's a personal attack.
OK, but you did say some pretty unsavoury things about Sir Sadiq Khan, didn't you?
I said a couple of throwaway comments.
OK, the sort of thing somebody might say in the pub.
I can't even... Sorry?
The sort of thing somebody might say in the pub, that, you know, he's a dreadful man.
Say what you want. What I'm trying to say is if you don't
but
like...
you put it on Twitter.
Sorry?
But you put it on Twitter.
There were some comments on Twitter, and I made a comment on Twitter. I made a comment about Carol Walderman. I made a comment about a joke at Indian Curry Awards. I mean, you know, it's freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. But didn't you suggest actually violence against him?
Sorry?
Didn't you suggest violence against him?
You're having a laugh, aren't you?
Well, I think... But
I suggested violence.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, I think that's what your tweets say.
Well, they can say what they want. What was said is...
But what you're saying is it was said in a light-hearted way. You didn't mean anyone should attack Sadiq Khan.
Well, of course I didn't.
No. And that, therefore, it was really an opinion that he was a bad mayor.
Oh, well, everyone knows that.
Well, every taxi driver in London, yes, very
of course.
clearly. And the Forfeitures Committee, what do you know about it? Do you know the members of it? Did they tell you who belongs to it? Because it seems to me it's a very secretive committee.
Well, you know yourself, it's... no, they don't tell you this, but we all know it's the old school-time mob and the handshakes, all that lot. We know... Look at him laughing. Well, you know what I'm saying. So it's all that mob that's in it. They're all drinking from the same teapot, right? and they're attacking me. It's victimisation, right? It's freedom of speech. I haven't crossed the line. This is 2 years ago. And you know, they're also coming up about something about Carol Walderman. Who's interested about Carol Walderman?
What did you say about Carol Walderman? Do you remember?
I said that she's a bad ambassador for the RAF.
Well, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say.
Sorry?
Well, that seems perfectly reasonable for you to say that.
OK, that's it. And I made a comment about, you know, she's... I don't want to say it on in now because I got told off before, but she don't dress that appropriate to be running around in a jumpsuit representing the RAF. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. It's an opinion, it's free speech.
And did any of this happen before you gave money to Reform?
No, of course not.
So it's related to your backing. You backed Nigel Farage. And then once you did that, then Labour came after you.
Well, look, as I say, it's a personal attack on me. It's I'm being victimised. My lawyer said to me, under no circumstances can they take your OBE off you. It took me 50 years to get it, and you've got these busybodies sitting around the table, right, you know, saying, oh, he said this, she said that, he said this. No one's interested in all that nonsense. It's all nonsense. It's a personal attack. They know it is. They're victimising me. All because I left the country, all because I support reform. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, you know, I've got no personal disagreement with, you know, Rayner, Reeves, Starmer, Khan. I don't think any of them are good at their job. I don't think they're professional enough. I think they're bringing the country to a standstill. That's what I'm saying about them. But, you know, there's no threat of violence. There's no threat of... You know, if I see him here, like, all right, I want to talk to him, but, you know, I ain't got no personal grievance with him.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Let me bring the panel in. Michael and Kelvin, what should the standard be? What should the bar be for taking away an honour?
Well, first of all, let's try and establish exactly what Mr Mullins said. I mean, according to the Daily Telegraph, so it must be true, Mr Mullins said that somebody should kill Sir Keir Starmer.
No, I never.
No, not Starmer. Sir Sadiq
Sorry, Sir Sadiq Khan. Sorry. Did you say that about somebody should kill Sadiq?
No, I never. What,
did I misread it?
Well,
no, you didn't misread it. You read it.
Michael, let me tell you, look, irrespective of what was said in the paper or what was on Twitter, OK, what the comment was somebody said, this was before the election, they said, do you think Sadiq Khan will win the next election? And I said, highly unlikely. I should imagine by then someone will want to kill him. That's what I said. That was a comment, right?
Right, well, that I think is on the... But I'd like to think about that because we are in a world where 2 MPs have been murdered in the last few years.
No, you're going down the wrong road.
No,
You're taking out proportion.
Well, if I'm trying to be fair to you here.
Well, you're not.
Well, will you let me finish?
Michael, have a word.
And if that is misread, you know, it could encourage. But, I mean, Sadiq Khan has been the victim of lots of death threats, so he says. Therefore, I think you have to think very carefully about this.
Sure.
It seems to me that you're just about borderline on that one. In terms of the other alleged offences, Carol Vorderman, well, that was crude, and we haven't actually heard the exact words, and I'm not going to repeat them. And what was the third one? I forget now. You haven't told me anything tonight that convinces me that it is a political plot. And if it was if the Honours Forfeiture Committee were taking honours away from lots of Reform donors or Conservative donors, I'd be, up in arms about it. But I think your case is just one-off, and there's nothing to convince me it's political.
Excuse me, it's not one-off. They're victimising many people that have left the UK. I know many billionaires, I know many millionaires have left the UK because they're being politically motivated against. We've left because we don't believe in the system. We're fed up of paying into the system. Now, when you say I think he's trying to say I'm enticing violence, right? The mayor, just a short while ago, Sadiq Khan said, when Trump goes over here, he thinks all the protesters should get on the streets and protest. Do you not think that's enticing violence?
No, I don't, actually.
Really?
No, I think protest there's a long tradition of protest, and I'm sure Jacob agrees with me.
Well, I've never seen a protest yet that's not peaceful.
The comments that you've said, your version of the comments, does seem to me could be misread and was a very unwise thing to say.
So here's the...
but let's...
So here's the issue. Who are these people?
Well, we don't know.
Right.
And four members are anonymous.
So they should discuss this in public, because if there is a suggestion that it is political, right? If you're talking about the shape of some woman or something, I can't believe this is about somebody losing their right to something that they, as Charlie has pointed out, has spent 50 years building a business. Is he really going to lose his OBE or whatever under those circumstances?
Didn't there used to be a very simple rule, and that is you lost your honour if you went to prison?
Yeah.
And that wasn't arbitrary. That was part of the punishment of committing a crime. What's happened now, actually, because of Sir Fred Goodwin, there was a huge popular outcry to take away a knighthood from somebody who hadn't committed a crime but had done a lot of damage to the economy.
Correct.
And that's been open season, then, to say, we don't like this person's views, therefore, let's attack his honour.
Paula Venables is another
that's Paula
example.
Venables. So she gave hers back, which I think was actually a better answer, because I think we need to go back to saying you lose your honour if you've committed a crime, or you're an enemy of the country, because we took it away from her.
And if Mr. Mullins had said what the Telegraph reported him as saying, but he denies it.
No, I never denied it.
Oh,
don't stop
he was just phrasing it
put it in context.
Ask me the question, I'll give you the answer. Don't ask yourself
the Telegraph, as I said,
but
anyway,
Charlie wasn't charged with incitement to violence or making a death threat or any of those things.
Yes, if any of those things
he might have done.
Yes, if any of those things had appeared in court, that would be a different case.
That's right.
But now what we've got is we've got a load of people who we don't know.
But I agree with you entirely on this, and Charlie, we should know who the Honours Forfeiture Committee are.
We should know.
They are all Freemasons, as you say,
Michael,
or all drink out of teapots from the spout.
We all know the old school time mob and the handshake lot. We all know that, right?
I'm the old school time mob, but I've nothing to do with the Honours Forfeiture Committee, so not all the old school time
mob.
mob.
They're not working class people in there, right?
I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are.
Well, I think the whole Honours system needs to be opened up and transparent.
I think we must move on. I'm sorry to say, but thank you very much, Charlie, for coming in and to my panel. In a moment, the North Sea has enough oil and gas to fuel the United Kingdom for decades to come. So why won't Ed Miliband lift the ban on drilling? Thank you. That was
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst some western parts of Europe are having something a little bit drier than they've seen through recent days, further east it's a very unsettled picture. We have heavy rain across parts of Italy, Greece for example. Totals could build up to around 100–150 millimetres over the Italian mountains, with some intense thunderstorms mixed in as well. Meanwhile, further west, a drier picture, albeit some rain pushing its way into Madeira as we go through tomorrow. Otherwise, like I said, western parts having the best of the dry, sunny weather.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. While energy bills have gone up by £100 a year for the average consumer, Energy Secretary Ed Miliband has maintained that consumers could see their bills reduced by up to £300 by 2030. But a new report from Offshore Energies UK has revealed offshore drilling could provide an extra 3 billion barrels of oil, which would fuel the UK for decades. When you throw the trillions of cubic feet of gas from fracking into that, we may actually have a serious energy policy. The problem is, Labour has banned all new domestic drilling and forced Quadrilla to fill its fracking site with concrete. So for now, we're stuck with unreliable wind and solar. Well, my most pugnacious panel is still with me, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the author and journalist, Michael Crick. Michael, I'll come to you because you're in favour of renewable energy, you're a strong advocate of it, but you recognise that we're going to need fossil fuels for some time to come. Doesn't it make sense to use our own resources, both economically and indeed in terms of energy security, rather than being reliant on the kindness of foreigners?
We have led the way in reducing carbon in this country in the way that Margaret Thatcher would have approved, as we've discussed this many times, because she was one of the first politicians to identify the problem of global warming. And Margaret Thatcher didn't sort of say, oh, well, we're going to lose the Falklands, let's give up the fight altogether. We should carry on this fight for net zero. We may not achieve it, but we should do all we can. And the stuff that's in the ground right now, it's maybe possible to use it further down the road. But let's get to net zero first, and then we're not writing off using it ever.
So use foreign supplies first.
Well,
all the insecurity
that's
that
where
creates.
it gets more complicated.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because that was the question I was asking you.
Yes.
Why do you prefer to use foreign supplies than domestic supplies? Recognising we've got to use them, even if net zero by 2050 is possible. Let's accept that it is for the purposes of this
Well, I think we should do all we can to use as little as we can, and because it shows our commitment. If we don't use our own and we don't sink new oil wells in the North Sea.
Symbolism.
Symbolism. Okay. You're a politician. Symbolism is hugely important in politics.
Kelvin, I mean, I'm afraid for once I think Michael's talking absolute nonsense.
No, I've always thought that. But I thought that the truth about the matter with your monologue and also with what Lord Moynihan was saying, we are a poorish country. And it's the speed at which there is nobody I know in the whole country who's ever going to say that wind and solar aren't a good idea. The question is, how much does it cost us to get to this point? And unfortunately, it combines with Ed Miliband's desire, endorsed clearly by the Prime Minister, that we should do this as quickly as possible, with an economy which says the money isn't there at the moment and is not likely to be there. And therefore, why is it that we have to have these constant increases in our energy bills to fund these kinds of investments in offshore wind and solar generally, when we clearly haven't got the money? Because it's ordinary people who are paying for this, and it's not the ordinary people that are going to benefit, actually. Their grandchildren may benefit if it comes to it. But why is it that the most successful economies are ones that are ignoring this great rush? China and the US, and poor old the UK and its people are funding an idea which I hope, you hope, everybody hopes is going to happen, but where is the money?
We're committed to this. We are not a poorish country. We are one of the richest countries in the world still.
OK, well, with Poland going to pass us in 2030 and Slovenia going the same way?
Well, that is a sign of how brilliantly Poland has done. I wasn't aware of that, but good for them. And we should not renege on our international commitments. Margaret Thatcher wouldn't have reneged on her international commitments in these circumstances. And we should see this as a great opportunity, an investment opportunity, a growth opportunity, rather than going on about, say all the time, oh, we're not going to do it, it's never going to make it, and the Chinese and all of that.
But even if it is a growth opportunity,
yeah.
Even if you're right, everyone says that gas is going to be a transition fuel. We are sitting on trillions of cubic feet of gas. Why aren't we using it? Doesn't that just make sense? Because it helps our economy grow. It acts as the transition fuel which we need. It emits less carbon dioxide than bringing it in as LNG.
Well, if we can hit our target and use the gas, that's fine. But I suspect we can't. I mean, the important thing is hitting this target, or at least trying to hit this target.
Isn't the reality, in fact, that 2030, fortunately, is 1 year after the next election, and the chances of a new government coming in are on the high side, and that will be the end of that, because Reform are not committed to the speed at which this is happening. And actually, we now have in Kemi Badenoch somebody who said it's preposterous, it can't be done, and if we do try to do it, we will literally go bust.
Oh, I agree with that. I think net zero is kaput. Anyway, thank you to my panel. In a moment, it's State of the Nation's second exclusive of the night, an uncancellation of the evening. I'll be speaking to the man who claims he lost his job after condemning the terrorist Hamas.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning chilly under clear skies tonight, it's likely we'll see a fair amount of mist and fog. Some drizzle to start the evening too across parts of the southeast, all thanks to this cold front eventually clearing its way towards the southeast, allowing a ridge of high pressure to build. So that means it's going to be a largely settled night to come. But with light winds, clear skies, it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the time we reach the morning, particularly around North Sea coasts, past parts of East Anglia and across parts of the south too. Could see quite a murky morning, but largely dry, though we can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north of Scotland. Turning chilly under those clear skies too, perhaps even some light patchy frost in rural spots. So across parts of the south, quite a murky start, quite grey skies around, some mist and fog, which may be quite dense at times and perhaps a little bit slow to clear. Similar across Northern Ireland, parts of northern England, some patchy fog, also some frost in places. And across Scotland, still fairly dry. Once again, there is a risk of some mist and fog to start and just a few showers, particularly across parts of Shetland, maybe even some longer spells of rain by the morning too. Once any mist and fog clears, particularly across the south, it will lead to quite a bright day. Plenty of sunny spells and largely dry too, though once again just the odd shower skirting the Northern Isles. And we'll start to see cloud thicken across the very far northwest too, perhaps even some light outbreaks of rain just starting to push into western Scotland later and turning quite blustery here. But in the sunshine, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so warm spring sunshine to come into tomorrow. For Thursday, though, it's starting to turn more unsettled. Cloud and outbreaks of rain sinking its way southwards across Northern Ireland, Scotland, later into northern parts of England and Wales. Across the very far south and southeast, that's where we'll see the best of the brightness. And once again, feeling warm in the sunshine, but unsettled on Friday and Saturday with showers, longer spells of rain, and feeling a little bit cooler too. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, tomorrow on GB News.
Always interesting.
Welcome back, and now it's time for State of the Nation's second uncancellation exclusive in what could be the worst case of cancel culture yet. A sewage worker was dismissed by Severn Trent Water after he described Hamas as a group of violent and disgusting terrorists in a post on the company's staff intranet website. The company has argued the internet site was the wrong place for political statements and that this pattern of behaviour was the problem. Well, I'm joined by the man himself now, Damon Joshua. Damon, can we begin by me reading you the statement that Severn Trent has put out and then getting your answer to it? Because what Severn Trent said was this is not about beliefs or opinions, it's about conduct at work. This individual was dismissed for a breach of a number of policies, having been warned on previous occasions about the inappropriate use of the workplace intranet. The inference that we support any side in any situation is categorically untrue, and we reject this suggestion in the strongest possible terms. It is a fact that Hamas is a proscribed terrorist organisation by the UK government. So, Damon, was that a problem? Had they told you not to use the intranet before, or was the intranet a discussion forum that other people used?
It was very much a discussion forum that other people used, especially the company. They felt it was all right to push their politics on people without having the right to disagree with it or to publish our own ideas of what we think are correct.
What sort of politics were they pushing on you? The sort of diversity and inclusion style politics that
very much,
some big businesses like?
Stuff, yeah. We had various weeks and months for various races, different cultures, sexualities, just the normal stuff you'd expect, I suppose.
And did you respond to that and say that, you weren't interested in Pride Month or whatever it was, and they reacted badly to that?
Yeah, so I tried to ask when people within my group would get any sort of inclusion, and I was met with mockery and essentially telling me that every day is Straight White Man Day, apparently. So that's the views of Severn Trent.
Okay.
For us.
So you couldn't stand up for yourself. They pushed politics on the internet. And then when you described Hamas as a terrorist organisation, which it is, as described by His Majesty's government, they then were shocked by this and responded to 3 complaints from your fellow workers.
Yes. Well, it was 3 complaints, but one of the people decided to not go to interviews, so I suppose that should really count as 2 complaints, but yeah, 3 original complaints.
And you've been taking this up with the support of the Free Speech Union. Where have you got in your response to Severn Trent?
I've stopped the process at the moment. I haven't proceeded to take it to a tribunal or anything like that. I just sort of wanted to move on with my life and I got a new job now, so I just want to concentrate on that. I just think it needed highlighting. I think it needed pointing out, and it needed showing to wider society what's happening.
And did other people use the internet to put their political views or object to Severn Trent's political indoctrination that they were trying to get across?
I didn't see many dissenting voices. However, I saw a lot of supporting comments and supportive voices.
Supportive of you or of Severn Trent?
Somebody was supportive of me at first, and then I feel like they were scared off by senior management.
Right.
But most of it was supportive of Severn Trent. There wasn't really many comments on the article the comment that I posted, because it was taken down so fast.
Okay.
However, on other things that they've published, there's always supportive messages on there.
Well, Damon, thank you so much, and thank you for joining me live on GB News this evening. My panel is still with me, Kelvin Mackenzie and Michael Crick. Kelvin, this seems to me really straightforward. Severn Trent think it's fine for them to nag people into politically correct views. You put on a view that's actually perfectly reasonable and factual, and they have a fit of the vapours because they're woke snowflakes.
I think that's fair. What we're starting to see is the breakdown of diversion and inclusion as being a kind of a stick to beat the employer with, and also to, in an odd way, to say to investors, it's a couple of pages to fill up when you're going around raising money, to say that you're all the rest of it. So you're seeing it break down the US. You're actually seeing it change here. I see the Bank of England have just started taking all that stuff out as well. So that's a good thing. It is simply unwise, I would say. I mean, I think it's shocking the guy got fired for all this, but it is unwise to try and take your politics into the office. However, if you're being told that profits from the company or revenue from the company are going into pride marches, and that there are certain ways of you being hired are based on colour rather than your ability, then actually you're going to start aggravating a percentage, perhaps even a large percentage, of your workforce. So you should stop aggravating the workforce, and they should stop aggravating you.
And that's where I want to bring you in, Michael, because initially I thought Severn Trent had a point. It was their intranet and an employee had become political. But actually they were shoving politics down the throat of their employees with all the DEI stuff. It's not an obligation to believe in DEI. You think it's the most awful nonsense, folderol, and then you must be allowed to respond.
Well, we've got to be. It's tricky here. We don't know the whole story, and we never will. But I do think they've overreacted. This was not a sackable offence, and actually they've made themselves look a bit stupid in doing this. And and the danger is they'll alienate the public. Of course, they're a monopoly, so it won't make much difference. But it's an overreaction, just the same way that NatWest Bank, Coutts Bank, grossly overreacted with Nigel Farage, so my sympathies are with Damon. Unfortunately, we couldn't hear the interview where we were sitting in the studio.
But Severn Trent taking this view that every day is effectively White Male Day is like the Sentencing Council saying everybody other than white men is going to have a pre-sentencing report. It really alienates about 50% of English society.
And by the way, it might be a lot larger percentage than that, because even although your politics may be of the left or something, it doesn't mean to say that you don't want fairness at work, i.e. if I'm good at my job, I want to get on. And the fact that I've got the wrong colour means I can't get on or I can't even get hired. That seems absolutely 100% wrong. However, so both sides have got to pull away from this. And when you think that this is a water company who've got enough problems every single day of their life and trying to do their own jobs, let them worry. This guy got another job straight away, by the way. So it's not as though he was some kind of incompetent, right? He has got other work. So I was very, very pleased to see that. And I'd like to see... Go on.
A quick appeal. Perhaps somebody from Severn Trent, an employee, would like to leak to us the contents of the intranet, and then we can examine it and perhaps run it on the programme.
That would be really... We'd love to see that. And perhaps
you should be in television.
We could also be told how much sewage has gone into the Severn and the Trent in the last year. Anyway, thank you very much to my panel. Up next, it's the one and only Patrick Christys. Patrick, what is on your programme this evening?
Massive show tonight, Jacob. Labour is going to bring over foreign workers to build new social housing for foreigners. Doesn't seem fair, does it? The knives are out for Rachel Reeves. 2 of her cabinet colleagues have now thrown her under the bus over the freebie scandal. Do your national service or lose your benefits. That's the message to the younger generation. Ed Miliband, well, he seems to be absolutely A-OK with solar panels being built by slaves in China. All of that and much more coming your way over the course of the next 2 hours.
Oh, that's going to be absolutely marvellous. Thank you very much, Patrick. That's coming up after the weather. I'll be back next Monday. I am Jacob Rees-Mogg. This has been State of the Nation, and you're dying to know the weather in Somerset. But I think Charlie Mullins should move there because it's much nicer than the weather in Spain. As you know, the rain in Spain stays mainly on the plain. But in Somerset, it's sunshine day and night. Good for the solar panels. Good night.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning chilly under clear skies tonight, it's likely we'll see a fair amount of mist and fog. Some drizzle to start the evening too across parts of the southeast, all thanks to this cold front eventually clearing its way towards the southeast, allowing a ridge of high pressure to build. So that means it's going to be a largely settled night to come. But with light winds, clear skies, it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the time we reach the morning, particularly around North Sea coasts, past parts of East Anglia and across parts of the south too. Could see quite a murky morning, but largely dry, though we can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north of Scotland. Turning chilly under those clear skies too, perhaps even some light patchy frost in rural spots. So across parts of the south, quite a murky start, quite grey skies around, some mist and fog, which may be quite dense at times and perhaps a little bit slow to clear. Similar across Northern Ireland, parts of northern England, some patchy fog, also some frost in places. And across Scotland, still fairly dry. Once again, there is a risk of some mist and fog to start and just a few showers, particularly across parts of Shetland, maybe even some longer spells of rain by the morning too. Once any mist and fog clears, particularly across the south, it will lead to quite a bright day. Plenty of sunny spells and largely dry too, though once again just the odd shower skirting the Northern Isles. And we'll start to see cloud thicken across the very far northwest too, perhaps even some light outbreaks of rain just starting to push into western Scotland later and turning quite blustery here. But in the sunshine, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so warm spring sunshine to come into tomorrow. For Thursday, though, it's starting to turn more unsettled. Cloud and outbreaks of rain sinking its way southwards across Northern Ireland, Scotland, later into northern parts of England and Wales. Across the very far south and southeast, that's where we'll see the breast of the brightness. And once again, feeling warm in the sunshine, but unsettled on Friday and Saturday with showers, longer spells of rain, and feeling a little bit cooler too. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 3232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is-
You're
the failure is-
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on